Hey guys, welcome to Algebra 1. I just wanted to go over a few of our practice problems this week for our lessons, which are lessons 60 through 63. So the practice for lesson 60 is just about 3D shapes. And you've already gone through surface area, and we've even talked a little bit about volume. So this week, all you're doing is finding lateral surface area and volume. So if you'll take a look, this is your practice problems. And remember that volume is just the area of the base times the height. So on question 1, it gives you the area of the base. All you have to do is multiply times the height. So the area of the base is 34 inches squared. So volume, you're just multiplying the height. So 34 times 12. Don't forget that your answer is always in inches cubed, or whatever unit, it's cubic since it's volume. Now to find the lateral surface, letter B, we're on lesson 60 again, and it's page 245. Letter B, the lateral surface is just that surface around the side. So I would find the perimeter of the base. Since it's a regular pentagon, that means that all 5 sides are the same. So 5 times 12 is 60. That's your perimeter of the base. And then to find that lateral surface, you're just going to go 60 times 16. And that's just going to give you the surface area around it. And don't forget, since it's just surface area, the dimensions are going to be units squared. So in this case, it's feet squared. So I hope that helped you set them up. And simply solve those are all you're going to take care of there. Lesson 61 is all about subsets. In class, we discussed how important page 249 is and all that box there to make sure you understand the difference between rational and irrational. And then all rational numbers are made up of different types, whether they be integers, whole, counting, and then rational can be written as a fraction or as a decimal. Irrational is things like pi or the imperfect square root of something. So it's neither terminating nor repeating. Now for your practice there, it's just asking what are subsets. Remember, we talked about how to write it. So it simply means, and you can look on page 247, and it shows you how to say that. It would read set B is a subset of set A. So whatever comes first is the subset of the second. So if you're looking at your practice, it's asking you which of these is true or false and why. So is B a subset of A? Well, since 0, 2, 4, and 6 fall under the counting number, or actually that would be under whole numbers, since it also includes 0. So since 0, 2, 4, and 6 are part of that, B is a subset of A. So number 1 is true. Now let's look at letter C, 0.62, because that's not a whole number. It's not an integer. It is a decimal, therefore it would be rational. So that's all that it's asking for there. Letter E, 2 square root of 2. Since square root of 2 is not a perfect square root, we would say that 2 square root of 2 is irrational since it's neither terminating nor repeating. Now, letter F, -4. -4 is an integer. Since it's a negative number, it would be an integer, which is, of course, a real number. All of these are real numbers, but we would write it that way. Now, 62 is all about square roots. Remember, that's the opposite of a perfect square. So we talked about how we would solve those. All right, let's take a look at some of our practice. It says, using a calculator, evaluate square root of 17. I'm just plugging that into a calculator and then working that out. We did actually several of these together in class, but let's take a look at letter D. It says square root of 81 minus the square root of 144. Well, all we're looking for there is whenever I have square root, I'm asking myself, what number times itself? Well, I know that since 9 times 9 makes 81, it would simply be 9 minus, bring down your minus, square root of 144 is 12. So my answer would be -3. All right, so that's all that it's looking for there. Now, letter E says -1 squared plus -2 squared plus or minus the square root of 9. Now, one thing I want to point out to you, the square is not touching the negative since there's no parentheses around it. So 1 squared is 1, but I've still got the negative. So it's like saying -1 times 1. So it would still be -1 plus -2 squared would become +4, but I've still got plus or minus, and the square root of 9 is 3. So my answer would be -1 plus 4 would be 3 plus or minus 3. So it'd be 3 plus 3 is 6 or 0 are my two answers, because plus or minus means that I have to solve it 2 times. So that's super important there when we're solving those. So again, that's some of the practice problem for lesson 62. And the last lesson that we're looking over this week is lesson 63. And lesson 63 is more with square root rules and repeating decimals. So it's important to understand that a radical goes to a radical. And so in class, we actually did letter B, the square root of 200. We also did the square root of 300 just to practice there. But since I know that 100, I can easily break down 200 is 10 times 20. And then we did 2, 5, and then 5, 4. I brought down this 2, 5, and 5. And then don't forget I'm breaking apart the 4, so that would be 2 and 2. So all I'm doing here is looking for perfect squares, 5 and 2. And so I take those each out. I have one set of 5, one set of 2, but there's still 1, 2 that had no match, so that stays under the radical. So 5 times 2 is 10, so my answer is 10 square root of 2. And that's the way that I leave it, because the 2 was not a perfect square root. And one way we can think of this, if it was square root of 100, that's a perfect square, that would be 10. But there isn't a perfect square root of just 2 by itself. We know 2 squared is 4, but not the square root of 2. It doesn't have a perfect square, therefore it's no match. So the answer is 10 square root of 2. All right. And then it says, what letter D? We actually did this one in class as well. And I pointed out to you that the bottom of page 258 actually showed that. And I would encourage you to memorize those basic repeating decimals, anything that has a denominator of 9. And we actually discussed that those are important ones to memorize. So letter D is actually at the bottom of page 258. I hope that that's a help to you. If I'm looking at letter C, it's the square root of 189. I know that 9 will go into it, and I know that because 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 9 more is 18. So 9 times 21 goes in to 189. I'm going to bring down 9 is 3 times 3, and then 21 is 3 times 7. Now, I have one perfect square root in there. I know that 9 was 3 times 3, so the square root of 9 is 3, simply because I have one match. 3 and 7, neither one have a match. So what I need to do is say 3 square root of 21. And the reason the 3 got to come out, it was a perfect square. It had a match. 3 and 7 did not. They were not perfect squares. They have to stay under the radical. So 3 square root of 21 is my answer for letter C. So we did C. We talked about where the answer for D was. We did B in class together. So you'll need to do A on your own. Well, I hope you all have a great week, and I hope that this is a good help to you all. God bless.